I just found out my father is not my biological parent after taking a DNA test results. I'd always read posts like this, but never thought I would be writing one myself at 35 years old. I'm sharing my story in hopes of connecting with others who might understand what I'm going through. If you do read this all, please know that I experienced a lot of denial at the beginning of this process. As someone who believes in science and data, it's painful to realize how hard I fought against accepting the truth. If you knew right away in a similar situation, please know I just wasn't capable of that, at least not initially. I was doing the best I could. Just over a week ago, on Halloween night, I was about to go to sleep at around 2 a.m. when I got an email that my ancestry DNA results were ready. Eager to see the results, I decided to take a quick look. I was excited because this was a project I had been working on with my father. When his mother, my closest grandparent, passed a few years ago, we were happy to bond over carrying on her genealogy research to discover and explore our extended family tree. But upon opening the regions page, I was immediately confused. 3 of my grandparents, now all deceased, had strong Ashkenazi backgrounds, which has always been a huge part of my identity. While my living family is not strictly religious, we have always been very connected ethnically and culturally to our Judaism. But when I looked at my results, they showed that I was only 34% Ashkenazi, a stark difference from my brother's 80% from when he took the test a few years ago. I convinced myself that maybe he'd inherited the maximum amount of those genetics while I received the minimum. Regions appeared that I had never heard my family speak of, and I had never seen in any of my research: French, Basque, Finnish. I dismissed this as well, recalling posts I have seen about people's DNA results shifting after recent Ancestry platform updates. Then I moved to regions by parent and I saw that all my Ashkenazi ancestry came from parent 1, while all these unexpected regions were from parent 2. I felt a pang of panic but quickly assigned parent 1 to my father, who had 2 Ashkenazi parents, and parent 2 to my mother, who had 1 Ashkenazi parent. I kept reassuring myself that this was just an extreme genetic distribution and nothing more. Then I opened the DNA matches section and saw my brother listed. This was no surprise to me, as I knew he had taken a test years ago, but then I saw that he was listed as my half-brother. I quickly changed the label to full brother, ignoring pop-up warnings encouraging against it. As I kept looking, I noticed 2 other people below my brother who appeared as my maternal grandparents, but their names were not those of the grandparents I grew up with my whole life. They were my grandparents' best friends, my sort of a pseudo-grandparents growing up. I gasped and clung to the idea that my mother had been adopted by her parents and that both families had stayed close through it all. After sitting with this for a few hours, I called my dad. Even though he and my mom had been divorced for 15 years, and I never made it a habit to involve them in each other's affairs, I just needed reassurance, and I've always called my dad when I needed help. When I asked if he knew whether my mom had been adopted, he laughed, assuring me she wasn't. I took him through what I'd found, leaving out details I thought were irrelevant. My dad was quiet as I explained, but he patiently walked me through my theory. The more we talked, the more inconsistencies we uncovered, and I grew increasingly frustrated. Then, to my shock, my dad suggested that he might be questioning his paternity to me. I laughed it off, even grew angry with him, trying to steer the conversation back to my mom's adoption. But while he looked up his own 23andMe results, I went back to my DNA matches section to find my closest relative on my paternal side. I clicked into family trees, expecting to see familiar names. And they were familiar, just not paternally. The trees showed my mother's relatives her tree. It hit me then, I had misassigned my parents. Parent 1 was my mother and parent 2 was my father. With the correct assignments, my biological grandparents shifted to my paternal side. As I was confirming this for my father, he protested, telling me this still didn't line up 100% because my brother had shown up as fully related to me. I then confessed that I had changed my brother's relation to me, thinking it was a mistake at first. When I reverted my brother's status to its default, it read, half-brother, maternal side only, and at that moment, after 2 hours of frustration, I finally broke down. The man who'd been my father all my life and my closest family were not biologically related to me. By 5 a.m., I was beyond exhausted, ashamed for clinging so desperately to denial. My dad told me he'd known from the first result I'd shared that he likely wasn't my biological father, not because he ever suspected it, but because he trusted the science. He said the hardest part of finding out with me was watching me struggle so hard to rewrite the truth. The next 24 hours, sleepless and emotionally raw, were filled with some of the most heart-wrenching conversations of my life. My mother shared with me that, early in her marriage to my father, she had a very brief affair. It was only one time. She believed she'd taken all precautions, and, with no reason to suspect otherwise, she put that chapter behind her. She went on to have 3 children, all resembling my father, and there was never a hint of doubt from anyone in our family. If not for this test, this hidden piece of our history would have remained forever unknown. This past week has been extremely challenging, and the first few days were damn near paralyzing, but I'm choosing to approach this journey with forgiveness and understanding, hoping to find some positive takeaway from it all. My father and I agreed that, although unexpected, learning this truth together over the phone was perhaps the best way it could have unfolded. Our bond is unshaken, and we both know this revelation doesn't change anything between us. As for my relationship with my mom, we haven't always been very close, but over the last 7 years, we've grown to understand each other in ways I never thought possible. She married at 20 and had me at 21, navigating a difficult past and a very limited opportunity to explore her identity before starting a family. As our bond deepened over the years, I often found myself wishing I could go back in time, befriend my younger mother, and show her another life. One similar to the one I am currently living and loving, largely thanks to her. I understand that she made a mistake at a young age, but nothing in me feels anger towards her. I realize that in many ways, I'm luckier than most in this situation. I have a supportive family, my siblings included, who have been incredibly reassuring and are fully behind whatever decision I make about reaching out to my biological father. I've connected with an NP, non-paternal event therapist, and my first session is this Tuesday. I've also ordered a few books written by others who've been through similar experiences, hoping they offer some guidance. My friends have rallied around me, and their support has been a huge comfort. Sharing this here feels like an important part of processing everything, a way to connect with a community who can truly relate. I know there are still many choices ahead, deciding whether to reach out to my biological father, figuring out what to say if I do, and finding a way to rekindle my joy for exploring my ancestry. I want to get to a place where I can carry on my grandmother's legacy, learning to appreciate each branch of my family tree, even if my connection to each one is now so different. Thank you for giving me a space to share my story. Comments. Commenter 1. As someone who believes in science and data, it's painful to realize how hard I fought against accepting the truth. If you knew right away in a similar situation, please know I just wasn't capable of that, at least not initially. I was doing the best I could. When I read that, I thought you'd have been in denial for months if not years, not 2 hours. This is at the root of who you are and what you believed in your whole life, so be gentle with yourself. I can't relate from personal experience, but I can imagine what it must be like. It's a relief that everyone is understanding and supportive. I wish you the best going forward. Maybe in time you could come back and update us on which decisions you made and how everything turned out. Take care. I was still trying to find some random excuses for a few days, but I have fully accepted it now. I just wasn't sure if people would think, how could she not believe the science? It's right there, LOL. Maybe that is just me still being hard on myself, so thank you for the reminder to be gentle. Commenter 2. You were basically walking yourself through the 5 stages of grief. The first is denial, which is totally normal when facing such a shocking revelation. It is a type of loss to learn this info. Be kind to yourself for sure. A week is no time at all to grapple with this. Good point. Yes, the denial was strong, but I'm onto a new stage now. Thank you so much for the reminder. Update. I want to thank everyone who read and commented on my last post. The past 4 months have been an absolute whirlwind, and so much has happened. I promised a few of you an update, so here it is. Since Halloween of last year, I've been very intentional about my NP journey. In November, I started seeing a therapist who specializes in NP experiences, and she's been incredible. I feel incredibly fortunate. Not only did I find a therapist who's a great fit for me, but she has also been through the exact same experience I had back in 2018. She's helped me navigate both the emotional impact and the logistical aspects of my discovery. As for reaching out to my biological father, I ultimately had my mom deliver the news to him and gauge his reaction. For context, I actually grew up around my biological father and half-siblings without knowing our connection. None of us did. His parents, my biological grandparents, were best friends with my grandparents, my mom's parents, and he and my mom grew up together. Though he wasn't technically a stranger, we hadn't spoken in years. When my mom told him the truth, he was completely shocked but also happy and immediately expressed a strong desire to talk on my terms. A few days later, I called him and explained how I discovered the truth. We caught up a bit, but mostly, he cried and expressed deep shame for what had happened, particularly what he had done to my dad. He told me he wanted to speak with my dad to make amends. And he did. My bio dad reached out and they had a few conversations. He expressed his regret and reassured my dad that he would never and could never replace him. Despite the pain, my dad has shown an incredible amount of grace and has been open to having a relationship with my bio dad. It's not entirely surprising, given that they were actually friends long ago, before and during my parents' marriage. Though they hadn't spoken in years, they were never truly strangers. I've made it clear to both of them that whatever relationship they choose to have is entirely up to them. Their journey of forgiveness is separate from mine, and I support whatever path they take. After Christmas, I saw my bio dad in person. While home for the holidays, they drove a few hours to come see me and my mother. The reunion was a bit last minute, but I knew they were eager, and I realized that dragging it out would only make me more anxious. My dad initially struggled with the timing. He felt it was happening too fast, but I reassured him that this was the right decision for me and my own healing. Eventually, he supported me. The reunion itself was surreal. I saw my bio dad, his wife, whom he met long after I was conceived, my 2 half-siblings, and my bio grandparents. Though I had known them as a teenager, the dynamic was, understandably, different. They all cried, hugged me, and expressed how happy they were to have me in their lives. We ate, drank, and tried to keep things as natural as possible. We even went out to dinner and toasted to everyone's strength in handling this news. The last toast was to my dad, which completely choked me up. I cried when they left. One thing that came up when I shared my regional DNA results is that my bio dad got confirmation that his grandpa was not his father's father. Their family had been speculating for a while that there was a DNA discrepancy, and my results just proved it and allowed my bio dad to tell his dad that his father was not biologically related to him. That's a whole other story that has come undone because of my discovery. Since the visit, my bio dad and I have spoken a few times, but everything has been very low pressure. After such an emotional and intense November and December, we all felt the need to settle into our new reality. The start of the year has been about finding normalcy again, and it's been refreshing to deal with everyday life while continuing to work through things with my therapist. The world is only getting weirder and weirder as time passes, and I'm trying to keep my discovery in perspective, to see it as a blip in my experience that makes me interesting and challenges me to rethink my understanding of connection, relationships, and family. With the continuous support of my friends and family, I don't think it needs to be anything more than that right now. Moving forward, I want to wait until the summertime to start digging back into my Ancestry account. My goal is to continue to help my father build out his tree, even if my DNA won't be an asset there. I will keep working on my mother's tree, and I have agreed to help my bio dad do more research on his family, since he doesn't know who his real grandfather is. I want to find ways to relate to all 3 trees, even if they all feel slightly different to me. In the meantime, I will work to gather health history and other info from my living bio family so that I can give my real health history for the first time to my doctors. Thanks again to everyone who has followed along and offered support. Feel free to PM if you are going through something similar and want to talk about it.